right, effective group decision making. So, effective group decision making. So, first off, you have to diagnose the problem. So, the group needs to come to agreement on what the problem is, identifying the obstacles that may be in place that would make it difficult to solve the problem, and then prepare to overcome the problem. So, that's the diagnosing phase. Then we get into the generating solutions phase, which is where we start to communicate with each other to really process the problem, try and figure out what our real goal is, and consider solutions. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a group and we've had to reconsider, okay, wait, what's our ultimate goal? What are we trying to do here? Because a lot of times as you start working on a problem, you start moving over here and you're working on this part of the problem and forgetting that this is what we're actually trying to do. So we stop and go, what's our goal? What are we trying to achieve? And that revisiting is really important in our ability to start generating solutions. So in this phase, in the generating solutions, we start considering things that might solve the problem. And we may come up with a list of possible solutions. And once we revisit what our ultimate goal is, we may start crossing some of those solutions off because we're in the generation phase right now. We're in what some people would argue would be a good time to brainstorm, to have all the members generate ideas. And what we're supposed to make really clear in a brainstorm is that there's not going to be any criticism of any ideas. No one's going to judge. Just throw out anything that you think of that could be a solution to this problem. And don't worry about money. Don't worry about anything. Just right now, generate ideas. A lot of people implement brainstorming in a bad way. And the bad way is to sort of blindside the members with, we're going to brainstorm right now. Everybody start brainstorming, thinking of solutions. You don't get very good answers in that scenario. What we want to do for effective brainstorming is to give immediate feedback about the ideas. So sharing of ideas should not be delayed. We should have, you don't want to have everybody sit on the spot generating ideas, put them on a piece of paper, and you say, okay, well, when the group gets back together, we will have all of these compiled and we'll have them up on the board. That's not the time for delay to happen. Delay, in fact, the best thing that you can do, I don't think I have this here. Oh, hold on. No. The best thing that you can do is reverse that, what I just said, reverse the timing. So when there's a delay, it should be between, oh, here's an email. We're going to be meeting next Tuesday on whatever our topic is. Come to the meeting with your best ideas, no editing yourself, all the ideas, get it down and bring them to the meeting. So give that delay ahead of time so the person can sit and think about it, generate ideas, and so on, and then come to the meeting with their ideas in place. So the delay part, that part where something happens and then there's time, that should be on the front side where you tell them, think of your ideas and bring them to the meeting. And then at the meeting, we should put them all up on the board and have those ideas shared all in one big group, all right now. So we don't want to delay the sharing of ideas. We don't want the members to be apprehensive, and that's a tough one. One of the ways you can get rid of that, believe it or not, is to have people write their ideas on slips of paper, tell them to put every idea on a different slip of paper. And I've even seen meeting organizers who, give you the slips of paper so that there's not enough room to write more than one idea on a slip of paper. So like, this is your one idea per slip. And have everybody just, when they come into the meeting, drop their slips of paper into the ballot box or whatever. And then anonymously, you're putting all the ideas up on the whiteboard. And so you might have people drop the slips of paper in as they're coming into the meeting, and then give them a little social hour. There's some snacks over there, something to drink, and you're compiling all the ideas that are in the box and only putting up, those that are novel ideas from each other, because there may be 10 people who all put the same idea in there. So just put it up there once, right? So get it all organized and stuff like that. People are a lot less apprehensive when they know that absolutely positively they're not going to just repeat something that somebody else said, because like maybe your best idea, somebody else got to go first and they already said it. So by putting it on slips of paper, everybody got it in there. There's nothing to be nervous about as far as being redundant. There's nothing to be nervous about as far as we're not going to judge you right now. All of these ideas are on the board and all of them are perfectly fine. We're just going to talk about them abstractly. So it's nothing personal when it's been put on the whiteboard like that. Now, if you have members that are very concerned about how they might appear, they may not want to speak during the open, analysis of the different ideas that have been offered. And that's a problem. That one's a tough one. But ideally, people will be willing to share because of the way that it's been going and the group hopefully has built cohesion and stuff like that. So brainstorming is for generating solutions. Now we move into this phase of evaluating solutions. And we have to now, when I wrote critically evaluates each of the solutions, it's the solution that's being critically evaluated, not the person who generated it. That's a really important distinction. We want to consider, and by critically, we don't mean putting it down or picking it apart. What we mean by that is considering it rationally, considering it like maybe each idea gets a head-to-head competition. Is this one better or is that one better? Okay, this one moves on. Is this one better or that one better? This one moves on, kind of thing. So that's what I mean by critically. It's not nitpicking. Each of them is getting a chance in a hearing. Ultimately, you're going to choose a solution. And so the ones that have made it through whatever critical evaluation phase, you have to ultimately, pick one from all the options that had been. We're hopefully going to walk away with one solution. So how do we pick one? Well, one way to do it is to delegate one person the decision maker. And, a lot of times, like at school, we oftentimes call that the chair of the committee. It could be the supervisor. It could be whoever has been assigned that role as decider. So one person gets to decide. Another way that you could do it is just sort of average individual votes. You could say, who wants which of these? I just saw a video on multiple choice voting, I think it's called, or I can't remember what it is. But so maybe we have all of our options up on the whiteboard and you rank order. I think that might be what it's called, rank order voting. You rank order which of the solutions you think is best. And then we just tabulate like how many people voted for each one. And if none of them has like half of the people agreeing on it, then the one that got the fewest votes, you take that one out of the calculations and move their second choice in as if it was the number one choice, and count that until finally we get a solution. It could just be strict majority rules. Maybe you're down to 2 and you just vote, and majority rules. Some kind of group consensus where you all talk until you finally have talked it out, until you finally say, I think we've got it. This is the one we're going with, and no official vote. And then the last thing you do is develop the action plan or implement the solution. And so, you have to, a lot of times in the group, the next part, you've picked the solution. The next part is figuring out the steps that it would take to implement. You have to come up with a monitoring process or some kind of evaluation process, like that. So just picking a solution isn't oftentimes the end of the group. And in fact, like in classwork, once you've chosen your solution, let's say your teacher has given you the option of doing like a live presentation, something that's recorded, or you could do some kind of like piece of artwork kind of depiction of whatever you're doing. Once you've decided which of those 3, well, now you have to implement it, right? You have to do one of those 3. So it's, picking the solution is not the end. So some ineffective decision-making. Process loss is any non-motivational element of a group situation that detracts from the group's performance. A lot of times people think, chit-chat would be an example of process loss, as the group periodically devolves into talking about something other than the task, and they're basically just chit-chatting. That would be process loss. They're not working on the task. But it turns out that actually helps to build group cohesion, and so it might be to the group's advantage that they're having chit-chat. So what we're talking about is you've got the potential productivity, and then you've got to subtract out of that any losses that are due to faulty processes. So, anytime that you're maybe arguing unproductively, I should say, not just arguing, but arguing unproductively, or You are busy following up on those group members who were late to the meeting and we lost time because those people weren't here and we didn't start working, like that. Those things are what we would call process losses. And whatever's left over is the actual productivity. So what we want to have is, productive groups that are all pointed in the same direction and working on the same project. It's okay if they're socializing as long as they're pointed in the right direction and working on the task. Now, shared versus unshared information, I wanted to share something interesting with you. So we have some unshared information that only Chris in the group knows. We have some unshared information that only Fred knows. And we have some unshared information that only Becky knows. Okay, so we have those places of overlap where there's some information that Chris and Becky both know. There's some that both Fred and Chris know. Some Becky and Fred know. And then we've got the little overlap in the middle that all three of them know. Okay. That shared information, that little tiny bit in the middle, is what groups tend to talk about the most. They tend to talk about their shared information. They rarely pool their unshared information. Here's Chris with something really useful that maybe the other members of the group would like to know, but we're busy talking about the shared information. We're all getting normalized and talking about, oh yeah, I heard that too, or yeah, I already know that. And we never get to the unshared information. That means that the group is making a decision based on shared information and they're making decisions that are maybe less informed than they could have been. If only we knew what the other people knew that we don't know. That would be really helpful. So unshared information should be like the first thing we want to deliver to our groups. But I think there's a social norming thing that goes on where what we want is to give a piece of information and then be reinforced by other people going, oh yeah, I heard that too. Oh yeah, I know about that. And that feels good because the other person's confirming what you've said. Whereas if you provide your unshared information, they may say something like, I've never heard that before. Are you sure? Like that seems like something they would have announced, right? And they actually kind of question your unshared information, and it can be a little bit punishing. And so I think that's one of the ways that groups end up a teeny tiny bit ignorant because they make decisions based on only that which they all already knew. All right, groupthink is our desire to agree becoming dominant in a cohesive group. So if you have a really cohesive groupthink tells us that your desire to agree becomes the dominant way of being in the group. So this executive says, groupthink isn't working. Let's go to plan B. Finding any deviants whom we can fire as scapegoats. So in groupthink, we have a cohesive group. We've got usually a charismatic leader. And the charismatic leader might have revealed their position on the topic. They may have let the group know, I'm leaning this way or that way, try and convince me otherwise. Or I'm leaning this way or that way, tell me how I'm wrong. Now that sounds like an opening to say what you think, but by telling their opinion first, it shuts down discourse because who wants to be the one to tell the charismatic leader how they're wrong? So, and also we have to throw in that when you say something contradictory, the meeting goes longer and your group mates don't like that. So you might not want to be the one who slows down the group. So what happens with groupthink is that we don't necessarily realistically appraise the alternatives in front of us. We don't give everything a fair hearing. We don't really consider all the options. So I'm going to go ahead and stop here because I'm so close to 15 minutes. Let's come back and we'll talk about some of the things that lead into groupthink and some of the effects.